I was unable to live at home anymore with my family, so I went and lived with my mum and dad, but my drinking was that bad there. And through this time, ended up arguing and getting in a fight with them and had an AVO put on me there. And it was through breaching that AVO that I ended up in jail. I think maybe this time it might be a bit of a wake-up call. Let's maybe not drink, but no, back to the drink again.
Hello and welcome to Wellbeing. I'm Jack Hodgins. Today is the second and final episode looking into Grant's lived experience with drug dependence. Grant has experienced a relationship with drugs since his early adolescence until reaching sobriety recently. Follow his story in this edition of Wellbeing as Grant gives insight into the life of someone with a drug dependence and their journey to recovery. Please be advised also that there may be some coarse language in this program. Hello Grant, and welcome back to the program.
Yeah, g'day Jack. Thanks for having me.
In the last program, Grant, we were talking a bit about how your journey to recovery. Would you mind continuing telling that story?
When I went to rehab in 2018, there was a slight success because through that period of time, once I'd gotten off the opiates and the benzos, I actually did not take them up again. I also didn't smoke marijuana as heavily again either. I'd only do that sometimes. That was from 2018. However, I had this crackpot idea that after I went to rehab, I'm going to be a controlled drinker. When I left rehab, all I could think about was getting a drink, having a drink. And it didn't take too long until I ended up down the hole again. And I ended up in a bit of trouble with some things, and I don't know. I actually ended up going to jail for a couple of months. I was just held on remand. And anyway, that was quite interesting because after that, I got out and, you'd think, right, I wake up call, let's not drink here. And I should mention for that time it cost me my relationship with my partner, the mother of my 3 children. Put a great deal of strain on my parents. Because I was unable to live at home anymore with my family, so I went and lived with my mum and dad, but my drinking was that bad there. And through this time, I was drinking 1.5 bottles to 2 bottles of spirits a day, and it was really bad. And I ended up arguing and getting in a fight with them and had an AVO put on me there, and it was through breaching that AVO that I ended up in jail. That was what happened to me. So as you can imagine, this is starting to take not a massive toll upon myself, but also everyone else that's important in my life. Anyhow, so I did that time in jail, and I ended up just getting out with paying some fines and with a community corrective order and whatnot. And anyhow, I went and I lived with my grandfather for a bit. And, you'd think maybe this time it might be a bit of a wake-up call. Let's maybe not drink, but no, back to the drink again. It slowly crept back in, and when I say slowly, over about a month or so. And then I was starting to have some connection with my ex-partner at that time, the mother of my kids again, and things weren't going too bad. But anyway, as I started to drink more again, things went a little bit sour between us. And anyway, one night I was supposed to go over and see her and the kids, and I'd been drinking, and she kicked me out, and I went around to another mate's place and I drank more, and I ended up getting in an argument and a fight with him there, and I left there and I crashed my car high range into another car. And I was very lucky, nobody was injured. But it was at that point that I decided to go to rehab again, and that's when I went out to Adele.
With the substances that you did take, how did they make you feel? Like, what does it feel like to take those substances?
I guess for me personally, any substance that I was trying to take was to give me a sense of to be okay, just to feel good, just to I was reaching a state of not stressing about things. That was, it would actually make me feel quite numb, I guess, to everything else that's going on in my life. It actually made me feel quite good. As I said earlier on in the piece, to get to the point of where I was an alcoholic and an addict, I enjoyed doing those things to start with and then formed a dependency around them. So I guess there was still this euphoric state that I was always trying to reach all of the time. But the problem is when you do something for that long, like I did, or for me, what ended up happening is it's okay to be trying to reach a state with the baggage that comes along with it. So here I am trying to reach this, great state of feeling awesome. Yep, I feel great. And you might reach that for a little second, but all of the things that you're doing over on the outskirts with your relationships and this and that, it's just creating that much trauma that then once you sort of have to come back and deal with those again, the only way to deal with I'll just drink more, take more coke, take more Valiums, to deal with the chaos that I was creating in my life. So what it made me feel was it just made me feel content. That's probably the word.
Okay.
Content.
What kind of challenges were there when you did take the recovery on?
There's lots of challenges around it. I guess the people around me that were really important to me were getting their hopes up that I was taking some action and doing some things. So there's a great feeling of responsibility that comes with it. Because if you've got a lot of people around you that love you and are really counting on you to get it this time and get your life back in order and everything like that, when you don't, you feel a little bit worthless because, people have got this big expectations and hopes that you're going to get better and then you don't,
Did you feel like you wanted to quit but you just couldn't? Was there that kind of feeling?
If I could tell you how many times I just said, that's it, I'm not drinking again, I can't drink anymore, and hundreds of times. There would be times where, as I said, there was a good 10 years or so where I never missed a day of drinking. But then in the last few years, there might be times where I might go a week, or the longest period I went 9 weeks one time. But just what I found was once for me that the progressive nature of the addiction had gotten to such a point, it's very hard to control it again. So, let's say I haven't had a drink now. The last drink I had was on the 3rd of July, 2020. So that's about 16 months, I think it is. So for me, if I went and had a drink now, that wouldn't necessarily be the end straight away, and I might control that for several months. But I know that it will slowly creep back in. It will slowly creep back in until it just rules my life again. And one of the other parts of that is too that I believe it would only take me to drink too much one night where I'd feel a bit sick the next day and I'd start drinking again in the morning. That was something that really progressed with the addiction for me as well, was when it became really, really bad for me, was when that started to happen, when I started to drink all of the time. So, I would drink to stop feeling sick. That was when things got really bad, because then what happens too is you actually form a physical dependence on it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I was physically dependent on, I can remember towards the end a couple of times when I'd tried to detox, and I'd always have to detox with Valium. I said I'd been into the mental health unit and that I'd done a couple of at-home detoxes where my mum had helped nurse me back to health. And I tell you that it was just like, I would be crook for a week. I would be that sick. Like, if you can think of something what you would class to be a really bad hangover where you're throwing up, you've got diarrhea, you're sick, I'd be like that for a week. That is the level of dependence that I would end up forming on it in the end. Yeah, it's quite sad, really, because what I should touch on too is, for me, before I did something about it this time, it cost me a lot, mate. It cost me the relationship with the mother of my children. As I said, it's my best friend. I went to jail for a couple of months. I lost my job. I'd had the same job for 23 years. It cost me that. And then, as I said, then I still crashed my car high range, drink driving again. That is how bad things got before I really started to get it and go, holy, I've just got to do something about this. but yeah, there's actually a physical dependence that builds up over a period of time as well. So you can't go without it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
When I start drinking again, if I drink too much one night, I would keep drinking again the next day. And then before I know it, I'd have this physical dependence on it again. That was just something that happened to me all of the time. And it was actually quite interesting because just recently I was listening to old Dr. Carl on the radio and someone rang up and they said, "Oh, what's your best hangover cure?" And he goes on and he said, he goes, "Well, mine," he goes, "I don't really have one." He goes, "Because I've only had a hangover twice." He goes, "I got drunk once and I felt that sick the next day. I said, I'm never going to do this to myself again." He goes, "I did it one more time. I woke up the next day and said, I'm never going to do this to myself again." I didn't. Anyway, what he did say, though, was he goes, "Believe it or not, the best cure is a little bit more alcohol." And what he put down to it scientifically was he said that in all alcohol, the main type of alcohol that we want is ethanol. However, there's always a little bit of methanol in there. And if you've drank a massive amount of alcohol, the ethanol wears off and normally the methanol just goes through the kidneys, he said, something like that. But anyway, what happens when you have a lot of it, the body will start processing the methanol at the end of once all the ethanol's out of your system. He goes, if you just have a little bit more to drink again, the body will go back to going through the ethanol in your system and just throw the methanol out through the kidneys again. This was his exact words, or close to. He goes, "The only problem for this, it works that well for some people that they become alcoholics." That was me to a degree. So that was where the difference came from me being a functioning alcoholic to being a non-functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
Was through that point, once I discovered that I could drink more, and then didn't control that very well, because I shouldn't say that, because there was a lot of time where I knew I could drink more and I'd feel better, but I also knew that I couldn't do that because I had to go to work or I had to drive the car or I had to do these things. But then a period of time came where the desire to drink or the need to drink superseded all of that stuff anyway.
You're listening to Wellbeing, where we're discussing the experiences of living with a drug dependence. My guest today is Grant, who has experienced a drug dependence, most notably with marijuana, from his early adolescence until recently.
Do you feel different after recovery? Do you feel like healthier, or do you feel different?
I feel very different. So I'll answer that question to start with, actually. I feel very different. I probably feel physically the best I've felt in 20 years or more. I feel really good. Mentally, I am so much better. I can regulate my emotions. So a minute ago when I said something that I need to touch on is really around emotions. And I think that that's where the addiction for me stemmed from in the end. So, you know how you asked that question earlier, actually, of what I was trying to achieve or what it felt like when I would take these drugs. I'll tell you what it felt like. It felt good. It felt like I was okay. Because what I believe in life is we're all just trying to feel okay. We just want to get through life and feel good every day. That's what everybody wants to do. So that's what I was trying to achieve through my addiction, was to feel okay, just to feel good. And that's what it was taking for me in the end. And I couldn't see that that's really what was robbing me of feeling good, because I'd have these short glimpses of feeling good. So these are the things too that then helped me with my recovery this time. I had a caseworker out at Adele. And anyway, when I first met with him, when I got out there, he said, "Righto, tell me a bit of your story and a bit of your history." And that was where I said I spoke to him about when I'd started binge drinking at an early age, because he goes, "When did you first have a problem with alcohol?" And I said, "I'm in my mid-20s. And that was when I stopped smoking the dope and I started drinking all of the time." Yet he goes, no, you had a problem with alcohol way back then. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's probably right." And then he said to me, he goes, "Rightio, alcohol's not the problem, it's the solution. We need to find out what the problem is." And I still remember it, if that makes sense to you. Because
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "You're right. Here I am. What I'm trying to do is just achieve this feeling of okay, like I belong, like everything's good. I've got this, good chemical balance in my brain to make me feel good." yeah, I was just going about it the whole wrong way, and I couldn't identify what it was that I was trying to achieve. Anyhow, there's a long road between figuring that out and getting there. Let me give you the red hot tip. Even when I was at rehab this last time, they're called reservations. Anything that addicts have. So if you do a little bit of the 12-step program or Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, they're called reservations. Any time that you think that you might use again or drink again, what would it take? So it might be the passing of a loved one, or it might be that you won the lotto. These are your reservations that you might start to drink again. So, for me, I didn't know. I wanted to be sober, and I wanted to live a drug and alcohol-free life. However, there's still a bit in me that it had been such a part of me for so long that I didn't know how to function like that. So I was also quite, I don't know whether the word scared. Drinking and drugs was part of my identity. That was part of me. By this stage, I'd been doing for 2/3 of my life. That is how I had lived. So quite a daunting sort of thing, because then you also start to think, how I spoke to you before and said, well, your friends all revolve around your addiction, everything that you do. You might do less and less things, but if I went out and rode my motorbike, it'd all be about finishing at the pub and having beers with the mates. If I went for a game of golf, it'd be about having drinks. If I woke up in the morning, it'd be about having a drink. Everything that I did was about having a drink. And so you've got to look at life in this sort of way of going, wow, everything's got to change here. I've got to change everything. And so that's a pretty hard thing to look at, if that makes sense to you. Anyway, that's when I started embarking on this journey of going, well, rightio, emotions is what it's all about. Yep. And then it was another thing that you spoke about was going, it's okay to feel something. It's an emotion and it will pass. However, for me, I'd been an alcoholic and an addict for such a period of time that I was quite an emotional person and thought that I was in touch emotionally, but I was an emotional person that had absolutely no idea about the emotions I was feeling or how to deal with them. So then what this was starting to teach me was identifying these emotions, but also realizing that they come and they go and they change and this is normal. So whenever I'd have these, I'm having a feeling before, I'll drink that feeling away, or we'll take another couple of tablets, let's get rid of that feeling. Whereas here for the first time, I'm starting to sit with these feelings and these emotions and work through them. And so that was obviously a massive part of rehab for me. So like I said, Aaron spoke to me and he's like, the drugs and the alcohol aren't the problem, they're the solution. And really the problem is not being able to deal with emotions. That is the one thing that has really helped me since I left rehab, because if I get there and I feel like I want to have a drink or I feel something, I actually sit there and think about it and go, wait a minute, I know I really feel like that now, but what's that going to lead to with my emotions later on? What emotion is that going to lead to? And let me tell you, the emotion that I'm trying to achieve through having a drink, which I want to achieve this little bit of feeling okay, it may be up here. However, the feeling that will come after that can get way, way, way down here and last a lot longer. So something that we were taught at rehab, or that I was taught around there, it was called like a window of tolerance around emotions. So the longer they say that you stay drug and alcohol free, the bigger your window of tolerance will be. So what I mean by that is, let's say your window of tolerance is down here. This is good, but anything you feel a bit happy, you want to drink, you want to enhance things will be great. Use again, drink, get rid of that. But over a period of time, the window opens up and you can start to have these emotions without having to rush into your crutch of drinking or taking drugs to deal with them. And that's what I'm really finding. That is what's happening for me. Something that I found not only a lot of pride in, but something that helped me too was my first 12 months of being clean and sober. it was like, that was a really good milestone for a couple of reasons, because in 12 months, that's what human beings base, we base everything off time, but that's a big chunk of time. It's one lap around the sun. You've gone through all 4 seasons. You've celebrated a birthday. You've had Christmas. You've had Easter. You've done every annual thing. So for me to be able to go through the seasons, to go through all these events and be alcohol and drug free was quite a big feat, because I hadn't done that for 20 years. Like, I had not done that for 20 years. So I literally didn't even understand that, you know what? When it's raining outside and it's cold, I might feel a little bit down for a little while because I can't get out and do the things I want, but that's okay. It's going to fine up. Things are going to be okay. Like, this is all new to me. I'm just like, wow, and it was just things as simple as that. Or, you might get sick, or loved ones might get sick, and things might happen, and you'll be like, you know what? It doesn't last forever. And you never reach a low point like you do when you're deep in addiction. So bad times and bad things are just exacerbated way more. When you're an alcoholic and a drug addict, you can just get into that depressive state that much worse. That is what I found. And things that I might consider to be quite bad in my life, they might affect me for a couple of days now or something like that. But once upon a time, I would have ended up in a spiral, started drinking, probably created a whole nother bag to then carry along with me over this one little incident that wasn't that bad to begin with. And I'd just end up on this massive, big depressive spiral and drug and alcohol fueled chaos and mess, and so that's the biggest thing that I've learned. And for me, it's life, but it's almost become a little bit of a game. It was to be like going, this is how I feel over this. I wonder how long that's going to last. I wonder when I'll feel good again, or when I feel bad. And then sometimes, I might not feel 100% for a couple of days, and I might find that I'm feeling a little bit quick to temper, or, I just don't have much patience and things like that. And I'll notice it, and I'll notice it now, and I'll actually be able to regulate my actions in line with emotions are what bring on actions, So they say, I think it's like thoughts can bring emotions, and then emotions and that they'll lead to actions, But I can have a much healthier outcome around the actions of an emotion nowadays, and I can identify an emotion and act accordingly to it. So as I said, if I feel a bit short-tempered or just a bit annoyed for a couple of days, I can be aware of that now, but I don't get stuck in it either, because I'll be like, oh yeah, I know this will pass. I'll always try and do a little bit of analysing and go, I wonder why I feel like that. Can I put my finger on it? Because that's the key to it all now, is going, what can I do that makes me feel good? And what am I doing that makes me feel bad? Well, how about I do a little bit more of what makes me feel good and a little bit less of what makes me feel bad? Now, we can't always put our finger on those things, righto? We just have emotions. However, I'm able to analyse a lot better now.
You're listening to Wellbeing, where we're discussing the experiences of living with a drug dependence. My guest today is Grant, who has experienced a drug dependence, most notably with marijuana, from his early adolescence until recently.
Where do you want to go from here? What do you want the future to be?
I do want to put a bit back into helping people with addiction, particularly men. I'd like to help men with addiction and their mental health. So what I've done, I've just finished my Certificate 4 in Community Service. Maybe what I've got to say can help someone struggling with addiction or something, Anyway, so that's what I'd like to work on for the future. And other than that, I can never get back the years that I lost to addiction, but I can definitely have a lot of good years ahead. So I would never look and say, wow, Jesus, I'm lucky to have all those things go on that happened to me that did. But also, too, the experience of all of that has enabled me to enjoy the simple things now, because I can look back on how bad things got for me that I can literally just be happy with going, had a good meal at the end of the night, at the end of the day. I'm going to bed at a reasonable hour, and there's a 99% chance that I'm going to wake up in the morning feeling really good, full of energy, ready to attack another day, and not only be able to attack the day, but let's say it throws something at me, which life does. I'm actually going to have the mental stability and the energy to deal with those obstacles in a healthy manner. So that's something that I look forward to in the future, is to just keep going ahead with the things that I've done and the changes I've made and reap the reward that comes with them. Yeah, I'm definitely a better father. I'm definitely a better son. I am definitely a better member of the community. Just all of these things. So, yeah, that's all that I sort of look at for the future for me now. And, I've still got a lot of work. I can't ever just say, I'm cured, because I don't believe that that's how it works. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, I might be like, oh, yeah, take it or leave it. But for me now, if I get the feeling that I want to start to drink or take drugs, I've really got to stop, acknowledge that, and put a lot of thought around into it of why I shouldn't. And that's something that I have to do for the time. And so that's my maintenance. So that's just what I'm going to be doing for the future is, thinking what's the next right thing that I can do.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Grant. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. I've had a good time talking with you too. Thank you.
This was the second and final program looking into Grant's story with drug dependence. Thank you for listening. I'm Jack Hodgins, and all of us at Wellbeing wish you well.